I'm here to urge Congress to prioritize this and pass it because it affects so many women. Black, white, Latino, we are affected. And it's important that we don't just accept pain as our norm.
Lupita Nyong'o is battling chronic uterine fibroids, a condition she has quietly managed since 2014. The same year she won her Oscar for 12 Years a Slave. She said that she was diagnosed with around 13 cancerous fibroids and underwent surgery to have them removed. Doctors warned her that they could recur. As she put it, it's only a matter of time until they grow again. Fibroids can lead to heavy menstrual bleeding, anemia, pelvic pain, frequent urination, and complications during pregnancy. Lupita emphasized how common the condition is, affecting up to 80% of black women and 70% of white women by age 50, yet largely overlooked in healthcare discourse. The illness didn't stop her, it reshaped her, slowed her down, reminded her of what truly matters: health, family, and purpose. She began balancing her work differently. She worked with non-profits focused on autoimmune disease awareness. She donated anonymously to lupus research, and most of all, she showed up for others walking the same difficult road. Before the Oscars, before the red carpets, before she became the face of African beauty and Hollywood elegance, there was a little girl born far from her ancestral land, yet tethered to it by blood, by history, and by the dreams of her people. This is the story of Lupita Nyong'o, and it begins not in Kenya, but in the heart of Mexico City on March 1st, 1983. You see, Lupita was born during a time of political turmoil. Her father, Peter Anyang Nyong'o, an intellectual and a political activist, had been forced into exile from Kenya. As the regime cracked down on dissenters in the early 1980s, voices like his were silenced or forced to flee. And so, with courage and conviction, he packed up his young family and moved to Mexico, where he taught political science. It's there in a foreign land that Lupita first opened her eyes to the world. Her mother, Dorothy Ogada Buyu Nyong'o, was no ordinary woman either, a powerful figure in her own right. She will later rise to become the managing director of the Africa Cancer Foundation. Together, Peter and Dorothy will raise their children to the grounded, fiercely intelligent, and unapologetically African. When Lupita was less than 1 year old, the Nyong'o family returned to Kenya, and just like that, the little Mexican-born girl was now back in the land of her ancestors, Kisumu, a lakeside town that thrums with Luo pride and resilience. She grew up in Nairobi, in a home where books lined the walls, where political discussions filled the air over dinner, and where excellence was not merely encouraged, it was expected. In her own words, Lupita once said, "My parents raised me to believe that I was capable of anything." Her name, Lupita, was inspired by the Virgin of Guadalupe in honor of her birth country. It's a name that now echoes across continents. But back then, it was just a sweet melodic sound called out by a mother who saw magic in her child. Imagine this, a young Lupita, maybe 6 or 7 years old, standing in the middle of the living room, a blanket tied around her shoulders, putting on impromptu performances for her siblings, all reciting lines from a school play with dramatic flair that left even the strictest of teachers stunned. Her parents noticed it, that spark, that light in her eyes, and they nurtured it. They took her to the Kenya National Theatre, enrolled her in extracurricular performances, and encouraged her to explore not only her talents, but her identity. Because being Lupita Nyong'o meant being more than one thing. She was a Mexican by birth, Kenyan by heritage, Luo by culture, and global by spirit. But growing up wasn't always simple. In a world where light skin was idolized and Eurocentric beauty dominated the media, little Lupita, dark-skinned and African, often struggled with self-image. She later admitted, saying, "I prayed to God to make me light-skinned." It was a plea whispered in the quiet of night, in the solitude only a child can feel when she thinks the world doesn't see her. But the world will see her in time. As she grew older, her education blossomed. She attended Rusinga International School, one of Nairobi's prestigious private institutions. There, she not only excelled in academics, but stood out for her drama performances, constantly stealing the show. At just 16 years old, her parents sent her back to Mexico. this time to Taxico, a colonial town, to improve her Spanish and reconnect with her birth country. It was a defining moment. She was uprooted, placed in a completely different culture, and had to find herself all over again. She lived with a host family. She adapted, she learned. She spoke Spanish fluently. Today, she switches between Spanish, Swahili, Luo, and English with grace and ease. But deep in her heart, Kenya remained home. The food, the sounds, the scent of red earth after rain, the storytelling around fires at family gatherings. By the time she turned 18, Lupita wasn't just a performer, she was a visionary. She understood that storytelling wasn't just about acting, it was about truth, about reclaiming narratives, about showing the world who we are. This, my friends, was only the beginning. Because this young from Nairobi with a Mexican passport and a heart full of African rhythm was about to chase a dream across the ocean. A dream that will lead her to Hollywood, to the biggest stages in the world, and to battles more personal than anyone could imagine. When the spotlight first found her, it wasn't in Hollywood. It wasn't on a movie set or under flashing cameras. It was in a school auditorium in Nairobi, where folding chairs squeaked and students whispered behind thick textbooks. The young girl on stage, Lupita Nyong'o, barefoot, focused, holding a script with trembling fingers, and in that moment, the world disappeared. It was just her and the story. At Rusinga International School, Lupita didn't just study literature, she lived it. From Shakespearean drama to African folklore, she dove headfirst into every role, and she didn't just memorize lines, she embodied them. Teachers noticed, so did her parents. But in a home filled with intellects and high expectations, being an artist wasn't the obvious path. Her father, Professor Nyong'O, was busy building a legacy in politics and education. Her mother, Dorothy, was changing lives in health and philanthropy. Still, Lupita felt called to something different. Not politics, not academia, but something that burned in her chest. It wasn't easy, of course. In a society where doctors, lawyers, and engineers were the pride of every family gathering, saying "I want to be an actress" felt like a rebellion. But her family supported her. Maybe they didn't fully understand this fire in her, but they didn't try to extinguish it either. In her late teens, Lupita worked behind the scenes on international film sets shooting in Kenya, including the critically acclaimed The Constant Gardener. It was there, in the quiet chaos of cameras and lighting rigs, that she saw the magic from behind the curtain. And then came the turning point. Lupita packed her bags and left home once again, this time for United States. A long flight, a new world, a massive leap. She landed at Hampshire College in Massachusetts, a liberal arts school where students carved their own paths. Here, Lupita studied film and theater, combining her love for storytelling with the technical mastery of the medium. But Lupita wasn't just performing, she was creating, she directed, she wrote, she filmed. So she applied to one of the most prestigious drama schools in the world, the Yale School of Drama. Only a handful get in every year, and Lupita, she walked through those heavy doors with trembling feet and unshakable ambition. But Yale wasn't a fairy tale. It was hard, brutal, emotionally exhausting. She often questioned if she belonged. In her final year came the role that would change her life. She submitted a tape auditioning for a film few had even heard of, a historical drama about slavery. And just like that, the girl from Nairobi, the student from Hampshire, the immigrant, the dreamer, was cast at parts in 12 Years a Slave. When 12 Years a Slave premiered in 2013, it shook the world. And standing at the center of it all was Lupita Nyong'o, the girl from Nairobi, the student from Yale, now a breakout star. And then came Oscar night. February 2014, Lupita stepped onto the red carpet in a baby blue Prada gown. Regal, graceful and glowing. She was nominated for Best Supporting Actress against industry legends. Overnight, she became more than a winner. She became a symbol of possibility, of beauty in blackness, and of what happens when courage meets opportunity. Lupita Nyong'o is battling chronic uterine fibroids, a condition she has quietly managed since 2014. The same year she won her Oscar for 12 Years a Slave. She said that she was diagnosed with around 39 cancerous fibroids and underwent surgery to have them removed. Doctors warned her that they could recur. As she put it, it's only a matter of time until they grow again. Fibroids can lead to heavy menstrual bleeding, anemia, pelvic pain, frequent urination, and complications during pregnancy. Lupita emphasized how common the condition is, affecting up to 80% of black women and 70% of white women by age 50, yet largely overlooked in healthcare discourse. The illness didn't stop her, it reshaped her, slowed her down, reminded her of what truly matters: health, family, and purpose. She began balancing her work differently. She worked with nonprofits focused on autoimmune disease awareness. She donated anonymously to lupus research, and most of all, she showed up for others walking the same difficult road.